Namaskar everyone, I'm Harpreet Kaur and I welcome you all to our special session on Teaching Learning Interventions for Inclusive Classrooms. You are watching us live on our eVidya channel number 1 to 12 and also on our YouTube channel ncertofficial. This week through our sessions we are celebrating dyslexia. Dyslexia, as we all know, is a learning disorder. It occurs in children with normal vision and intelligence. But there are ways to deal with children suffering from dyslexia. And through our sessions on teaching learning interventions, we try to cater to those needs. The topic today is extremely relevant and is the need of the hour when we talk about inclusive classroom teachings. The topic that we have taken up today is inclusive teaching strategies in the classroom. And we are joined by our experts for this session. Let me introduce you all to our experts. We have with us Ms. Soni Gill. She is coordinator from Early Intervention Bethany Society, Shillong. Welcome to the session, ma'am.
Thank you. Privileged to be here, ma'am.
And we're also joined by Ms. Lakshmi Krishnakumar. She is founder director of Sankalp, the Open School. Welcome to the session, ma'am. And for this special session, we have with us our Indian Sign Language interpreter, Ms. Anushka Sharma. Welcome to the session. So viewers, it's a very special session. As I mentioned earlier that we are celebrating dyslexia this week and we're going to have a very wide discussion on the topic inclusive teaching strategies in the classroom. If you have any queries, you can contact our experts through our telephone number, which is 8800440559. You can also email us your queries, suggestions and feedback. For that, our email ID is dth.class9@ciet.nic.in. Since you are watching us on our YouTube channel ncertofficial, you can drop your comments and suggestions in the live chat box and you can connect with us instantly. So let's start this very important session and the discussion, of course. My first question is for Soni ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to ask you that in the present scenario, how do you view SLD, that is specific learning disability or dyslexia?
Yeah, so nowadays we know that in a classroom they are going to be, the variability is the norm. In fact, it's not the exception. And if you can show my first slide, please. I just wanted to show you how we are looking at SLDs, or for that matter, other disabilities or other disabling conditions as well, as just being one part of student or human variability. Okay, and under that we have, as you can see on the slide, the first one is your biology, another is your learning preference, another is your degree of privilege, and the last is your positioning for learning. But today I'd just like to concentrate on the biology part. We know very well that SLD is biological, that there is a difference in the neurological wiring of the brain. You know, so the three areas of the so-called developing brain of other children that look after the way of how we decode, how we encode, how we read out a word. The roots between these for our children with dyslexia is just different. So we are not saying, so we are looking at neurological wiring as the one thing as being different. And that is how we are actually looking at dyslexia these days. We're not really looking at it as a disability, you know, but a technodivergent.
Right. Okay. So we can see that in the chart, and as you clearly mentioned, that we are not looking at it as some kind of disability. And today we have remedies available. Today we have different strategies with us through which we can have this inclusive kind of teaching in the classroom. So please explain more about it, ma'am. Soni ma'am, can you hear us? Okay, I would like to direct my question
Yes,
to...
I can.
Yes ma'am, please continue.
Yes. So we are looking at it more as a one variability in the classroom. We know that no two children in a classroom are exactly alike. So we are looking at them now as just being neurodivergent.
Right.
Okay? Neurovariable. And we are saying that, so we are saying that variability is actually a strength that we need to capture rather than some hurdle that we have to only overcome all the time.
Right.
You know? So if you go to the next slide,
Sure.
I'll just explain a little further what are the ways in which we can address this different variability.
Yes.
Okay, so we know that the way we looked at education in the mainstream classroom earlier, where we were quite rigid about the curriculum, the content to be covered, exactly what the whole class was supposed to be able to do a particular thing at the end of the class, end of the session. We know now that it just doesn't work. This whole so-called normal thing in our minds is actually a myth. There is no average student.
Yes.
Everyone is unique. Okay, so we say that one size just doesn't fit all anymore, and it's important for the teacher to have a lot of flexibility in how she or he does the lesson in the classroom, to be able, before the classroom, to be able to say, okay, I know all the children in my classroom, I really know my students, so I have my material ready for the different children, okay, like for different groups. And I think on the first day and the second day of our program, our experts then had talked about reasonable accommodations in the classroom. But today I'd really like to stress upon how we have learned that using the universal design for learning, we have borrowed from the concept of universal design for built environments, where we said, earlier, the designs were such they were made only for people who could climb stairs or who could read or who could hear or who could, see well and all this.
Yes.
So now and how they have actually adapted and planned the environment so that everybody has access. So we have what we call universal design for learning, which basically talks about how in every aspect of the teaching learning process or the transaction, whether it is building on the motivation or engagement of the child or all the students in the classroom, or whether it is how you represent the material or how you give the material that you want to teach.
Right.
So what is your form of representation? And the last one, how do you expect children to respond or show you that they have learned what is happening in the classroom, so you're getting constant feedback about how each child is developing. So if you can just go to the next slide, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am. You very rightly mentioned that each child is unique and different and one size doesn't fit all. So how do teachers reach out to all the learners in the class?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we are finding all over the world now, and in the West, I think universal design for learning has been been in practice for about 15 to 20 years, quite a lot. But in India, it is now catching on.
Okay.
And we have an inclusive school here in Bethany Society, and we have been trying this model for the past 7 years. But of course, there was COVID in between. So you could actually say for the past 3-4 years. And we are finding that it's benefiting all the children in the classroom, not just the children with SLDs, okay?
Okay.
And because we are, again, we know now that the teaching learning process, and especially a child's learning, is all to do. We have to understand the neuroscience behind learning.
Yes.
Okay, and we know that there are three different areas in the brain. The one that looks at engagement is the whole amygdala region.
Ji.
That children purposefully they want to learn, and they want to be motivated learners, and that includes all our children with SLDs. There is no child who does not want to learn. There is no child who willingly wants to fail at anything.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the why of learning. And for that we say that especially for children with SLDs, this option for recruiting interest, we have to do in a classroom situation, we have to, first and foremost, know our class.
Okay.
We have to know each and every child in the class, and we have to know what really motivates which children. And when we are doing the first stage of our lesson, which is the motivation section, how do we use different ways of getting children to begin to attend?
Right.
To attend in the first place, okay? And then throughout the session, how are we making sure that the child is able to give sustained efforts to persist in their task, okay? And how, so we know that if we are going to make it all too wordy and too much about reading and too much only about print and the textbook and the writing, their motivation is going to go, for children with SLD. So how are we going to use a lot of other things, like using various sensory kind of, that is in the second thing of representation, different ways that the child will perceive what you are teaching. Okay. And then also that we have to include the different types of language that the child might prefer.
Right.
That does not mean English or Hindi for that matter. But for example, suppose we are giving something in written script, which we know is our children's main problem, then are we making sure that they are also getting the audio feedback? Are we making sure that there is enough pictorial representation of what we are saying?
Right.
Are we making sure that we are using videos? Are we making sure that we are using, demonstrations, or we are doing group work where each group has to do things actively, use the body, and at the same time, are we making sure that we are giving time for children to process whatever these options for perception, whatever these modes of perception that we are giving them?
Right.
And I just wanted to point out, yes, on the first day, both Nitya and the other self-advocate had spoken how for both of them, comprehension rather than content, comprehension rather than rote memory, comprehension rather than just learning rote facts was much more meaningful and important. And therefore, how important it is for the teacher to actually focus when she's planning her lesson.
Yes.
On what is my goal, that at the end of the session, my child or all my children or all my learners will be able to, and then after that give a verb, So it has to be something that the child has comprehended and then is able to actually apply in the world. Okay, and then the last one, which is the multiple means for action and expression, is from the point of view of the child. So often we find that children with dyslexia would much prefer to, give a presentation rather than write an essay.
Right.
Give a PowerPoint presentation, or even just do a role play along with their group or their friends, where they would rather speak than than writing out their answer. Where for even with very young children, where they can actually show what they have learned maybe on a mind map, which with more pictorials than with a huge essay type answer, So it's basically how we have to be very flexible, and we have to plan in all these three areas for what in UDL terms is called multiple means. That means we are giving them options in everything. Okay?
Right, ma'am.
Yeah. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll just give you a little bit. It just sums up in a little bit how these learning teaching strategies, or actually these are modalities, what really happens in the classroom. The first thing is you have to allow for different paces. That is the differentiation part, okay?
Right,
If you're
ma'am.
giving a task like write an essay to the children and you've given them half an hour, maybe for the children who have these problems, you're just going to say, okay, you do your mind map and you can take 45 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so it can be differentiated like that. Okay, so you have to use different presentation styles. You should have manipulatives also. I love this picture, okay, because the children were actually doing things, and that child on the right, the one touching the globe, actually has dyslexia. Okay, so how they actually do things manipulatively, they actually move the continents around. Very important amount of material on a page, the types of demonstrations you will do or you'll ask the children to do, how to do estimation games, practicals, etc., discussions, etc., you know. And the last thing that I would really like to mention about this before we move on is that how in classrooms where you have a variety of children, and that is actually all classrooms.
Yes.
It is so essential to do group work, you know, and how it is important to do a little bit of direct instruction and intersperse it with individual or small group work, not even to position children or seat them in the old way that we used to put children in rows. And there are these little things of think, pair, and share. You think about this, you discuss it with your partner, and then you're going to share it.
Absolutely.
Groups, etc., and cooperative learning and all that, because through this, children also learn a lot from each other. And we can actually, when we are doing group work, we can actually make sure that other children who do not have SLD see the unique way in which children with SLD do think.
Absolutely.
And do represent their data, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember one little child once was looking at the moon, you know, and she told me, "Ma'am, like cut nail, you know." So it was a chrysalis moon.
Yeah.
So she just kind of compared it straight away to when the nail is cut, what it looks like, you know, the little piece that is fallen out. Or, you know, how they make their links is actually very unique, and we should actually leverage it that in our classrooms.
Absolutely.
You know, and they become such great memory aids for other children as well.
It's a pure joy. It's a pure joy to deal with such children. They have the unique imagination, and sometimes they come up with brilliant ideas, I must say. And now I would like to move on to Lakshmi ma'am. We have learnt about how a teacher, you know, reaches out to all the learners, plans, strategies. Now, Lakshmi ma'am, I want to ask you, how can a teacher ensure that, you know, a student with SLD feels a part of the classroom? Lakshmi ma'am, can you hear us? Am I audible to you? Lakshmi ma'am, I am repeating the question. How can a teacher ensure that a student with SLD can be made to feel a part of the classroom like all other children?
I can hear you, Harpreet, but unfortunately, I think my audio is not going across.
Ma'am, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So my question to you is, it's a very beautiful question, that how can a teacher basically ensure that a learner with SLD, you know, feels as if he or she is also an important part of the classroom?
Okay, like you said, this is a beautiful question and a very pertinent question.
Yes.
Okay? And so we need to,
ma'am, we have a problem with the audio here. Can you please rectify it at your end? We are not able to listen to you. Ma'am, please check your audio a bit. And yes, since I was you know, talking about this question, that no matter whether you are suffering from any problem or not, no matter whether you have dyslexia or any other SLD, what is really important, that you feel like as if you're equal to other children in the classroom. And here teacher plays a very, very important role, as she makes sure. And how she ensures this, this is what I was asking Lakshmi ma'am. Lakshmi ma'am, can you hear me? Okay, so we are unable to connect with Lakshmi ma'am. Soni ma'am, may I direct this question to you, please? If you can answer that, how a teacher ensures that all children feel equal space and welcome in the classroom. Because these days we are talking about inclusive education, inclusivity.
Yes, I feel that children with any type of issues, any type of difference for that matter, very often they feel different from other children, and therefore they get a bit, like in a way even bullied.
Yes.
Or they might just feel different and they kind of retreat back into their own shells. And how important it is for the teacher to ensure that she creates she actually normalizes their whole experience, so that other children begin to see them for their strengths rather than, for things that they cannot do as well as other kids can.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also feel that it's really crucial for the teacher to ensure that children with SLDs are, that they are included in all, and they're given a platform in whenever other children are doing anything, whether it is drama or whether it is group work or whether it is, presenting the group work, that, or it could be on the sports field, or it can be in so-called extracurriculars.
Yes.
In all those aspects, how children need to be, totally along with other children and not in any way discriminated.
And we can see the same in the slide as well, ma'am, that, how teacher ensures, and open communication is one of the point mentioned there, which is a must thing, because
Harpreet, can I intervene? Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I think I'll add on to a few more points to what Soni has just mentioned. Of course, VACT, we all know, use of multisensory way of teaching, so that it kind of reaches out to each and every child, not only the child with, having an SLD, it benefits all the other children. Then, of course, assistive technology is there, but that is a little bit of a gray area, and right now we are yet to kind of, implement it and know the effects, or the positives and the negatives. Of course, flexible instruction has to be there, because additional time for assignments and breaking instructions into a complex instruction into simpler formats, breaking it down is very important. And even when a question is asked in the class, the child has to be given time to answer.
Yes.
Okay, and it is not.
Yes. Of course, you said it very rightly. The child needs to be given time to answer the question. We need to understand, what child requires, and here teacher actually plays a very, very important role. Now, Lakshmi ma'am, since we are running short of time, I have this another question for you, where I would like to ask you that how would you support individual learner struggles of support differential learning? So, I think there is a little bit of technical problem there. Soni ma'am, can you hear me? Would you like to answer this question on behalf of Lakshmi ma'am here?
Yes, yeah. So what we see very often in classrooms is that you need to, one of the ways that I found children really do really well is that you take the text that all the other kids are doing, and beforehand you just, each paragraph gets summed into a short little sentence that you should be able to write in a line. And then the child with dyslexia, her goal for reading and maybe spelling and all will be that much content, okay?
Okay.
Whereas for the rest of the, but she has to be able to listen to and know the content of the whole thing, which she can represent orally if she wants later,
Absolutely.
So her concepts won't be any different, but her actual reading task you might decide that, okay, I want the child to have a slightly differentiated reading task, okay, and spelling task. So in that way, you might make some accommodations. For children who find it really hard how to write, or to organize what they want to write, what really helps is this one thing called a magic line, okay, where you kind of start the sentence and then you give a blank. For example, Alice in Wonderland, for example, if they're doing that, Alice saw a rabbit or a R and a blank after that, okay? And so, and you will have to design it in a way that you are checking that the child, that these are words that the child is familiar with.
Absolutely.
So that they get a lot of success from their writing. Another thing is like for Teachers Day, for example, what I did with some student, she said she could not write her paragraph on it. So I said, okay, tell me what all you did. So she said, cards, flowers, balloons, gifts, games. We sang for the teachers. So I said, okay, let's write down each of these words. And then I told her with each of these words, make a short sentence. And she was able to write a little paragraph, okay?
Yes.
So they just need a little extra support to do little like paragraph writing and all. It's not that we want kids with SLD not to learn reading and writing. They have to learn at least how much they can. But we can make their amount that they learn to read and write less. We can also give them some scaffolds so that it is less than, so that it is easier for them to go ahead with it.
And of course, technology plays a very important role here. And since we are running short of time, ma'am, I have to wrap up my session here. But I would like to thank both my experts, Miss Soni and Miss Lakshmi, for their contribution to this very, very important session. We really thank you for being a part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So viewers, now it's time for me to wind up this session. In this session, we had a discussion on inclusive teaching strategies in the classroom. Before we wind up, here is an important update for all of you regarding NCERT textbooks. NCERT textbooks are available across the country through our different physical sales counters, and you can purchase the books from there. Also, you can place an order online and books will be delivered at your doorstep free of cost. In case you want to download the PDF version or soft copies of the books, you can do so by logging in to Diksha app, ePathshala and of course NCERT website. With this, it's a wrap. We will come again and join you with yet another important topic. But till then, namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.